Tegan, and we will be talking about our first case study, which is about a student named Ahmed. He's 9 years old and in 3rd grade. His primary language that he speaks at home is Arabic, and for his EDEL levels, he's a level 2 for listening, a level 3 for speaking, he's a level 3 for reading, and a level 2 for writing. His previous experience with English has been limited, but he has had some exposure as he was in a public school for 3 years in an enrichment program on the CSU campus where he lived with his family.
Thanks, Tegan. Hey guys, I'm Damia. So for our level 2 student in listening, Ahmed, we will have him take different images of our story, Chester's Way, and have him sequence the order of which they go in, and he will talk to us about what is going on in each section of the story. This way we can test his understanding about the story and see if he can actually comprehend what we are reading to him. He will also be able to ask and answer questions to demonstrate his understanding of the text, and he will refer explicitly to examples in the book to show his support for answers. He will be able to use the information that he has gained from the illustrations provided to demonstrate his understanding of the text, such as the where, when, why, and how events occur.
Thanks, Dognia. I'm Elizabeth. After we're done working on sequencing, we're going to move to predicting within the content area of reading, writing, and communicating. From this standard, Ahmed is going to be able to describe and draw inferences about the elements of plot, character, and setting within literary pieces, poems, and plays. To do this, we're going to use the information that he has learned throughout the book of Chester's Way and look at the last visual at the end of the story and have him predict what would happen next if the story continued.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I'm Taylor, and for this language function we're doing identifying, and the content stem is reading. We're going to students will use key ideas and details to determine the main idea, describe relationships between series of events, use and craft structure to determine the meaning of general domain-specific words and phrases, use text features and search tools. So for the activity, students will read Chester's Way and create a timeline based off the main events and characters in the story.
Oh hey, I didn't see you there. I'm Candace, and for writing, Ahmed is a level 2. And for his language function, we decided to do compare and contrast. And for the content sim, we did classified character actions. And for the standard, we picked standard 3-2, where he's going to do a writing process where he writes informative and explanatory text, where he states the main ideas and includes sufficient details. And then for our activity, we're going to have him partner up with a partner, and then he's going to create one list where he talks about Chester and Wilson and the things they did together, and then one list where he talks about Chester, Wilson, and Lily and the things they did together, and then compare them.
So now we're moving on to the teaching learning cycle. In the first stage, building knowledge of the field, we have an activity where we're going to have the student create a KWL chart about what he knows about narratives. So in the first column of the chart, we are going to start with what he knows. This could be components of narratives, like the beginning, middle, and the end, or more detailed things like the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and the conclusion or resolution to the story. The teacher can help guide and facilitate this discussion, but if the student is not familiar with these parts of the narrative, then the teacher can help the student fill in what they want to know, and this could include the different components of a narrative. This would be the middle column of the chart, and then the very last column of the chart would be what the student has learned. The teacher and the student and the class could go back and revisit this column of the chart later after they have finished the entire lesson on narratives, or they can just do it in a few days.
Hey guys, how's it going? So for our next part, we will be talking about supported reading. Supported reading is a 3-part process. The first one is teacher-led, the second one is collaborative, and the third one is individual. For the sake of this video, we will be talking about our individual activity. Our student, Ahmed, will be required to choose a book that he thinks is a narrative. He will use the background knowledge that he just learned about what makes a narrative, and he will use that knowledge to justify whether or not his book's a narrative. For the assessment portion of this, we will have him make a chart in which he analyzes the different components such as character, setting, problem, climax, and resolution to see if his narrative is indeed a narrative and if he can support it or not.
So for our next section, we're going to be talking about modeling and deconstruction. We have 2 activities for this. The first one would be a group activity where students would go to different stations where there will be different narrative texts and chart paper for the students to record what they notice about each narrative text. Once those lists are compiled, the chart paper will be hung up at the front of the classroom and the teacher will lead a discussion with the students about what they learned and noticed about narrative text. For my second activity, students will study the patterns of conflict and resolution within narrative text. To do this, groups of 2 to 3 students will be given a narrative text and read the story, and then they will be asked to reenact the conflict within their story in front of the class while the rest of the class writes down what they notice about each conflict. After each group has performed, the class will compose a list consisting of what they think is necessary to include in the conflict and what is sometimes used and what is not necessary to use.
The 4th stage is joint construction. Joint construction is usually done together with students in group or as a whole class. So for this activity, the teacher will model a whole class narrative outline. Students will do a sample narrative outline on their own after the teacher has modeled. In the modeling one, the teacher and students will create main ideas, conclusions, plots. This activity will be assessed by the outline the students create on their own. The teacher will after then model with the class how to write the whole narrative, and students will then do their own.
For the 5th stage, independent use of genre and construction, we're going to do one activity where students will begin planning their story by coming up with a general plot, characters, and setting using a story planning worksheet. Then they will share with a partner what their plans are for their story and take turns each making a compliment sandwich where they will compliment each other, give a constructive criticism, and then compliment each other again.